Hello, hello, hello. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here in Malaga and at Wey Wey Web. This is my first time at this conference, and I have to say, it's been absolutely amazing. I'm having a blast. I've met so many people, and it's been an incredible experience. And I'm really excited today to talk to you about collaboration and how I truly believe that collaboration is what we really need to create great products. And let me tell you something, this wasn't part of the presentation, but we had a few technical glitches to get this presentation up and running. And without actually putting different minds together, from product design to marketing to IT, we probably couldn't really get this up and running. So actually I want to say thank you to everyone at Wey Wey Web, Pepe, Rowena, Luis, and all the other speakers. They've been really helpful, and we can just have this presentation. So let's do a round of applause for them, because they have been absolutely great. And let me introduce myself. My name is Raff Di Meo. I'm a senior UX product designer at a company called Blue Yonder. I know there's Doddle somewhere, there's Blue Yonder somewhere else. We've just been acquired. And I am Italian, and I lived actually from Naples. I've met 3 Italians in the crowd already. And I've lived in the UK for the past 14 years. And as you can see, I've got a lovely dog over there. It's really cute with his rolled neck, looking like Steve Jobs. I had to put him on the slides. So he is there for you. Now, this is the time where I should start talking about collaboration, product, design, engineering. How do we come together? I've got 30 minutes to fill, and I'm sure you want a little break. So I'm going to start with a story. I want to take you to Italy with me. This is a place, I'm not sure how many people will recognize it. It's a little town on the east coast of Italy called Pineto. It's gorgeous, as you can see from the picture. It's very green. You've got these lovely hills that you can look to see. It's gorgeous. And I was there this September with this crazy bunch of people, which is my family. And we were celebrating a huge milestone. My mom and dad were celebrating their 50th wedding anniversary. And you can see them in the top right corner where we're celebrating the service. And it's a very special time to really get together and celebrate such a big moment for us. And we do in the only way that we can actually do. We're Italian. Of course we're eating at the table the whole time. We eat, we drink, we chat, and we keep eating and eating and eating until we can breathe. That's what we do. That's what we can do best. But especially for me, it's a very important time because I live abroad, as I've told you, and it's a moment for me to connect with my family, especially with the little ones that you can see there on the right, and my niece and nephew. I've got quite a few of them. This is them when they were very young. They've now grown up, actually. They are in their teens. They are 19, 20, 21, which is crazy. That shows my age. I'm not a teen anymore. I'm 36. But that's the cool thing. Now they are grown up, I can actually have a conversation with them, especially with Camilla. She's my niece. We can have full conversations about things that we like, things that we've got in common. And one of the subjects that we really like is to talk about gigs, to talk about music. And when I was there in September, it was really interesting to talk to Camilla about pop bands. I was telling her how, in my generation, me being old, pop bands really shaped who we are, our generation. And I asked Camilla, who are the pop bands that are shaping right now your generation? And funny that she couldn't really come up with many. The only one that she could remember was One Direction, which, funny enough, they're not together anymore. And that's it. So that sent me in a little bit of a rabbit hole, thinking about the late 90s and early 2000s, and thinking about pop bands. And I want to take you with me in this rabbit hole. Welcome to the Y2K. So we're in the year 2000, and we're talking about pop bands. And a show of hands, who is roughly my age, or who remembers the pop bands of that era? Right, good. I'm not the oldest one. That's great. I like that. There's some people my age. That's good. And I'm sure even the people that didn't raise their hand can remember Backstreet Boys. Yeah? Can you remember Spice Girls? Girl Power? Yeah? NSYNC? Yeah? Let's see which one is the most popular, gets the more who. What about TLC? Yeah? I think this next one is probably my favorite. Destiny's Child. Yeah? Beyonce? So it's quite interesting to see that at that time we had so many pop bands. They were ruling the charts. And now it's very different. And I find it odd. I used to remember when I was young, I used to wake up, put MTV on, watching the pop band's videos, trying to learn the lyrics and the dance move. Very badly, both of them. But that was really like what shaped my generation. And that made me think, because I'm a weirdo, and I started to think, what happened to pop bands? Where have they gone? Why are they not around anymore? And I'm not the only weirdo, by the way, thank God. I found this article from The Guardian in 2021. They noticed the same thing. There is a decline of pop bands. And they say, right now, and that was 2021, there are only 9 groups in the UK top 100 singles, and only 1 in the top 40. That's interesting, but I'm a designer. So I asked the what, and then I asked the why. Why is this happening? And it's interesting to see that Paul Smith from Maximo Park, he says it's more likely now that a kid will make music in isolation because of technology. And that's what really interested me, the word technology. Technology is really shaping things in a different way. It's making a change in society. And The Guardian analyzed the fact that it's much more likely for a kid to make music in their own bedroom, upload it to social media. So they don't really want to be part of a collective, part of a group where collaboration is vital. They just want to do a solo career. And if you think about social media, think about Instagram, think about TikTok, well, it's all about self-expression, isn't it? So I really see there is a connection between music and society. The way the music has changed can be seen in society. Society has changed too. And in particular, what I find interesting is, if you think about the decade, you will remember the music. If I say the 20s was all about jazz and swing, if I talk about the 70s, it's all about disco. I mean, I had the disco song at the beginning. So it's really interesting to see this connection with music and society. And I really think like technology is changing things. We're going from collective to solo. And technology is creating a more individualistic culture. That's what I really see. I can't see you, but I can already imagine that you're thinking, so what has this to do with me, with work, with the stuff that I do day in and day out? Well, I want to talk about the Silicon Valley, give you a bit of an example, a bit of a story to think about. This is the Silicon Valley. I've never been there. I Googled it, disappeared. And think about you are a big company in the Silicon Valley. You got loads of money, and you decide to buy the hottest startup on the market. That's really exciting, right? But now think about that no one wants to work for that corporate world, and all the employees for that startup decide to leave. What are you left with? Well, nothing. Yes, you got the technology, but who's going to improve that? Who's going to make anything happen with that technology? And that's why I think that people are far more important than technology. We talked about AI today. Even AI needs people to build the AI. Yes, you can argue AI in the future will create its own AI. I don't know, something might happen. I have no idea. But I think people are at the core of everything that we create. And that's why I started to think a little bit more about this concept of individualism. And I started to think and look into what actually that really means. And I came across this concept of heroic individualism from Brad Stulberg from the book The Practice of Groundedness. And it's very interesting. I'm going to read it to you because I think there's something very important in here. It's a mindset that involves a never-ending pursuit of more, where success is defined by measurable achievements and one-upmanship against others and oneself. Why is this important? I know it sounds very philosophical, very abstract, but think about business and take off those layers of formality, hierarchy, bureaucracy. What you're left with is just people that are coming together to create something. And if there is this shift from collectiveness to more individualistic culture, then it's going to have an effect, isn't it? Because the way that we are in society is also the way that we are at work. So who we think, how we think, and who we are really impacts the way that we come to work. Think about the way that we approach a deadline, or that we put a project together, or the way that we relate with other people, our colleagues within the company. So if everything is about achievement, even at the expense of collaboration, it's going to have an effect about the way that we actually work together. So I think it becomes even more important now to talk about collaboration, because we need to be intentional about how we do it. And that's the reason for my talk about product. Who owns the product? You always get someone in the team who wants to lead. We talk about companies being like design-led, product-led, engineering-led. There's always someone that needs to lead. Who owns it? Who actually makes the decisions? I think it's everyone. There's not just one person. We need everyone's expertise on the team to be able to actually make the right decisions and to drive that product forward. And I use the example usually of the triangle. I don't know how many of you have heard of the product trio. A raise of hands if you heard of the product trio before. Yeah, it's that concept where you've got product, you have engineering, and you've got design. And all three, from the get-go, they actually work together. Not one first and then the other. We all come together at the beginning to really try to understand how we can make a great product. And I love this quote from Paola Antonelli, a senior curator at MoMA in New York. She reflects on her experience studying design, and she says, design can never stand by itself. It always has to have another crutches, like she went to the Polytechnic of Milan, so the crutch there was engineering. And if you think about it, you got architects, they always work with engineers. You got designers, they always work with engineers too. There is a connection. To be able to make something good, we always need each other. We need to work well together, understand what we all really can bring to the product. And if you don't believe me, there's a very interesting article and report from Grammarly. They analyze that pure communication is a disaster in a company, because you can see there's increased stress, lower productivity, strained relationships, and missed deadlines. So if we learn to communicate better, we can have a better life and also create better products. And that's why my question is, how can we create better teams? Teams are at the heart of collaboration. How can we come together? And I came up with this acronym, DRIVE. How can we allow teams to drive? And it's 5 simple things. The first one is diversity, then respect, insights, value, and enjoyment. And let's go through each of them. And I'm trying to provide as many examples of things that you can actually try in your company. The first thing is diversity, which is really close to me. I think when you start from the get-go to have a very diverse team, you can really create a better product instantly. And there's this interesting quote from Kat Holmes from the book Mismatch. They say, inclusive design is not a checklist of principles. It's about designing with a diverse team from the start. Hey. So that many perspectives are considered and many barriers are removed before they even exist. And that's why I think if we can have, from the get-go, a very diverse team, we can start looking at problems in a different way, which means our solution will be better. And I'm going to give you 2 very tips that I've experimented recently when we started to create a bigger team in my company at Blue Yonder. So this is very much more for managers, but I think, just this point, but I think everyone can really start challenging things. So one of the things that we looked at was, how can we create a fair process when we hire candidates? And we know how the industry is, especially now. It's very shaky. And getting a job is very difficult. So we started to really question practices that have been done for such a long time. For example, do you need 6, 7 stages to be able to assess a candidate? Actually not. We noticed that we can do 2 or 3 actually in order to make them more inclusive, because realistically, who's got time to go through so many stages? And we started to question as well tasks. I know we always have done tasks, but do we really need to have them? So we started to experiment with people just coming to the interview and showing us their Figma. And we could evaluate them just simply by seeing what they've done. So they don't need to prepare anything. They don't need to spend weeks on a project. And the other thing that we started to look into is, how do we evaluate candidates? And we wanted to make that process really, really fair. So what we did, we created a matrix that we could put scores across for each candidate. And we started to do blind scoring. So everyone on the panel could put their numbers down, and after we come together and share that. So we could influence each other to make that really, really fair. And the second thing that I feel like is really important for me especially, because I'm queer and I've been in the industry for over 10 years, and I never really felt really represented, especially now that I'm in leadership position. I'm usually always the only one. So I really wanted to make sure that our team was representative of the world out there. And I started to think, how can we do that? And one simple thing that we decided to do was to simply put our job ads in specific community. So we're very intentional about it. So we put like our job ad into an LGBTQI+ community, or in a women tech space, or in POC spaces, so that people could actually see our efforts and we could get candidates from those communities and spaces. So that's diversity. The second pillar for me, in order to create a very collaborative environment, is respect. I'm going to start with a quote from Alan Alda, who is a very funny comedian from 30 Rocks and The West Wing. And he says, "The more empathy I have, the less annoying other people are." And that's really true, actually. But what does he really say? I don't usually like to use the word empathy. I feel like it's been overused. That's why I chose respect. But this is all about listening to other people. If we start listening, maybe we can get very different perspectives. And Rachel McConnell, in her book, she writes about performing teams. And one of the things that she says is, the worst performing team is one in which one person makes all the decisions and everyone feels like their expertise are ignored. How many of you ever felt that way? I was definitely one. I felt like no one listens to me. But what can we actually do practically when we go back to our jobs to make a little bit of difference in our teams? What these two quotes tell me is really much about listening. Let's go and talk to the product manager. Let's go and talk to the BA person or the engineer or the designer. Let's try to understand what their role is, what their responsibilities are. And let's try to understand where we sit within that so that we can have a better understanding of our world, finding a common language. And the third thing for me is insights. I mean, this sounds really weird. Why has insight has got to do anything with collaboration? Well, Jim Barksdale put it really well. If we have data, let's look at data. If all we have are opinions, let's go with mine. And this, I felt like I was in the room where this has been said so many times, where the stakeholders just said, let's just do that because that's what I think is right. But that's why insights and that's why research is really what you need in the team. Because what allows you to do is to move a subjective perspective to a completely objective one. If you got data, but also if you got observational data, that's really important because you can start really talking from your users instead from whatever stakeholders told you that you need to do A or B. And I know there's always a thing. I was yesterday in a really good workshop with Luke Hay about research, and one of the things that came up was all about budget. We don't have money to do research. But realistically, and we talked about yesterday, you don't always need a lot of money to do research. Before Blue Yonder, I was in a company called Doddle, which was a startup, not much money, and we still managed to do something. Very scrappy, very cheap. All we did, we talked to sales. I know, not many designers talk to sales, but that was the only option for us. We were B2B. So we talked to sales, we got a list of customers, and we got the permission to contact them and ask them, hey, do you want to have a chat with us? We recorded all of those chats, we created loads of snippets, and we uploaded them on Confluence. Everything was cheap, zero money, and a bit scrappy, but was very effective. We could show to the business, hey, people don't have a clue about what they're doing in our app. And the second thing is for teams that are already doing research. What I think is really important is to get everyone involved with the research. And I know there's lots of engineers in the room. Also, engineers should be involved in research. And to be honest, I never really thought that before. In the last couple of months, I sort of got with this idea. And the reason because we were building in my company a new product from scratch. It was everything to do with warehouses. But I've never really been in a warehouse myself. No the engineers, no the product managers. So we literally had no clue what we were building. What we did, we got everyone in a warehouse, and we had engineers taking notes about all the things they could see. And weirdly, that's what allowed us to shape the API in a different way. That observational data that we got on the ground shaped such a complicated technical solution, which is great. And that's why I think if you're already doing research, get everyone involved into that. The fourth thing is value. And you might be thinking, yeah, that's a bit vague, and it is. So that's why I've added business value. I think it's really important for everyone to get under the skin of a problem and to really understand what a business is trying to do. What's their business goal? Because I truly feel like when we know that, as designers and as engineers, we can actually provide our expertise in a better way. And that's quite complicated. I've tried many times different things. And what I think really works, both from an engineering point of view and a design point of view, is to reframe everything through a business lens. How do we do that? One thing we've done recently in this product that we are creating, we changed the navigation completely. We made it so much nicer. We were really happy with it. It looked much prettier. And everyone could see better iconography, better hierarchy, better fonts. That looks great. Is it really worth it, spend the money? What we have already got works. And there's so much that we can talk about: padding, spacing, fonts, color. People don't really get so interested as much as we do. All the stakeholders just want money, money, money. So what we did, we reframed what we were doing. We were not just changing the navigation to make it prettier. What we were saying to the stakeholders that by changing the navigation and by changing the information architecture, we could open up to a completely different audience. We could go from SMEs, small, medium enterprises, to enterprises, large enterprises, because we could show a little bit more about the product through the navigation. And that convinced them. They were like, yeah, let's go with it then. So let's think about how could we actually reframe our work in a more business lens. And the other thing is about enjoyment. I mean, I'm not here to tell you, we're not a business, we're a family. No, I've already got a family, you've seen it's quite big, hard to handle. So it's not about that. I think enjoyment is about rewarding ourselves for the work that we do. We work hard and we spend so much time doing sprint planning, backlog refinement. Let's just stop for a second and just look back, not through a retro, just see what we've achieved. What are the good things that we've done? And let's reward ourselves for that. Let's notice that we've actually made a change. And that's, for me, drive. How can we allow teams to drive a product forward? It's through diversity, respect, insights, value, and enjoyment. And those are just 5 things. There's many other things that make it high-performing teams. But these are 5 that are really close to me, and I hope spark some interest in you too. And this seems the end of the talk, where it initially actually was. But I started to think a little bit more about it. So we are creating these really good teams. They can make us so much money because they work really well together. They come up with good ideas. They change this button, they change that copy, and our prices goes up. Yes, great. But can we take this thinking a little bit further? The reason for that is, what if what our business is doing is actually unethical? What if the goals aren't really in line with who we are and what we want to do? And I started to think about this concept. Should we still have these really powerhouses, these great teams, even if the business goal is bad? And I came across this quote from Erica Hall. Really good. It sort of blew my mind when she started to talk about the business is the new grid. She says, most of what operates under the label of design right now is styling business models. It's not actually design, because you're not making meaningful choices. The choices have already been made. So what we do here? I mean, to be honest, I don't have the answer. I just wanted to close this talk with something that sparks some interest, that sparks some thinking, something a bit new. Because when I heard these businesses in your grid, I started to think about Figma. We always work in a grid. But that seems to seep out to the entire business. It makes us think a bit more, can we change business models? And I came across this interesting example, Sparkable. It's a new social media, and it's born to not divide people, but to unify them, to give them a collective platform where they can come together in a nice way. And what did they do in order to get to this? They changed the business model completely. They didn't design something new, they didn't change some buttons, they didn't add a new like feature or a star or a heart or whatever. They changed the business model, they redesigned it. And what they did, they deleted ads. Simple. That's what we feed into the social media now. We don't pay anything, but we do give them our attention. And the more ads we watch, the more they make money. So what they did, they looked at Wikipedia and they copied that business model. They make money through donations. It's crazy, it's weird. But if you think about Wikipedia, it works. They've been around for over 20 years. So that's something that I want to start thinking. Could I, as a designer, working with product people, working with engineers, really change things in the world? Maybe we can. And hopefully, we're not just going to end up like pop bands, just like dismantling. We can still come together and work together and be a band, be a team. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.